Hey, and welcome to the Little Spoon Kitchen. It is soon to be spring. We're coming up on St. Patrick's Day, and so I thought a really good recipe for us to learn how to cook today is a leek and potato soup or potato leek soup, whichever way you feel like putting the vegetable doesn't really matter. But I have a couple of really good tips that are gonna give you a really light and creamy potato soup. I know sometimes anything that you put potatoes in can get a little bit kind of gloopy and heavy, and I'm gonna show you guys how not to do that. And then I've got a couple of really fun ingredients to just add a burst of flavor that you otherwise would not have. So let's get started. One of the first things that I am going to do today, because this is a cook-along stream. So for those of you who are finding this at a later date, and you're looking for some soup that had potatoes in it, or a soup that was a spring soup or something like that for a kind of winter-summer transition, you're kind of figuring out what produce is in season, what can I use, that kind of a thing. It was a live, so I do have people over here hanging out in chat. I'm gonna be talking to them, answering their questions, and then just trying to give as much information, science or otherwise, about what I'm doing as possible to help you guys as you're cooking through this. Nothing is pre-measured, except maybe, I guess, these are kind of pre-measured because they're just in little 2-cup measurements and frozen. But nothing is pre-measured, nothing is pre-cooked, and so I'm working through kind of the whole recipe from start to finish. And if you stumble upon this at a later date, you can go ahead and give it a watch, give it a whirl, but do know that it was at once live. And these do happen once a month. They're typically on the first Sunday of every month. April's actually going to be a little bit later because in 2026, April 5th, the first Sunday of the month, is actually Easter. So we're going to do it in the second week, but it's typically the first Sunday of the month. So I need 6 cups of chicken stock. I have some kind of measured and frozen cubes here that I am going to pull out. These are each 2 cups. Or these are each 1 cup. So I'm actually going to pull out a bunch of these and kind of just have them set aside. This is a 1 cup. Go. And then what we are going to do is we are going to get our roasted garlic started. I really like this recipe with roasted garlic. It's not actually necessary. Jesus. Okay, this will be fine. It's not necessary to have roasted garlic. You can use fresh garlic, but it is a different flavor. I find that there's like a really nice sweetness to roasted garlic, and it mellows it out a lot. Okay, not as intended. It mellows out the flavor of the garlic a lot more, which I really like. And also I have a bit of an allergy to fresh garlic, so I tend to cook with roasted garlic in a lot of my recipes, but it's not fully necessary. If you want to just microplane garlic, microplane being one of these, zest or grate garlic, right into your dish as you're making it, you totally can do that. That is absolutely something that is fully up to you, up to your decision. The amount of garlic you want to use, also totally up to you. Measure garlic with your heart. I fully understand. But I am going to talk about roasting garlic today, and I'm going to show you guys how to do that kind of 2 ways. So the first thing that you could do, and this is how it's written in the instructions, is to take a bulb of garlic and chop off the top of it. This is a really old bulb of garlic, so I don't even know if this is good because this is not what I'm actually going to be using today. But yeah, this is good. Okay, so you're gonna cut the top of that off. Most of the time, I'll keep the tops of these, but I'm not going to today. And then what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna make sure that all of the tops of the garlic are actually cut off so that the oil and the steam that's in there can kind of be released into the packet so that it actually does kind of roast it and melt it, and it doesn't just trap all that moisture in the cloves. You're gonna put down some aluminum foil. It doesn't need to be this big. Typically what I'll do is I will buy like a big bulk pack of garlic bulbs, and I'll make like a huge batch of roasted garlic, and they only need to be kind of like a square. And then you set your garlic down into the center of it, shiny side in, and then you pour a little bit of olive oil over it and you wrap it up. And then this goes in the oven at 400 degrees Fahrenheit or 204 degrees Celsius for about an hour. That is actually, I'm gonna have my husband take this upstairs. We're not going to use this today, but I did wanna make sure that I'm gonna run up and do it because I'm gonna grab some canola oil while I'm up there because I need it. So I'm gonna take this upstairs, throw it in the oven. I will be right back. It may be a minute. Okay, going in the oven. I know you can't see me, but you can still hear me because I'm mic'd up. Okay. I only have an oven upstairs, which is great. So I have to get like a tabletop oven or something like that for down here. Okay. So the other way is you can confit your garlic, which is essentially anytime you confit something is you slowly cook it in oil. So I'm going to pour some oil in. Again, you don't need a lot. I've got maybe it just needs to be covered. So you need to have whatever you're cooking in oil needs to be fully submerged by the oil so that it doesn't kind of get any air on top of it, that you're fully cooking it through. I'm just gonna toss some cloves in. So I've got a huge bag of cloves that are pre-peeled because I decided it wasn't worth it anymore to be doing all of that. I'm just gonna toss them in. Peeling garlic and onions is like the bane of my existence. I can't anymore. I'm over it. And I'm actually gonna make quite a big batch. You don't need this many cloves. This recipe only calls for, I think it's 4 cloves of garlic. But you know what? I would like to have some more hanging around my house. And essentially what we're doing is we're kind of cooking these so that they turn into a paste. And we can just kind of blend them in. Like I said, it gives them a sweetness. It kind of caramelizes them a little bit. The garlic mellows them out. And then it turns into kind of like a pasty texture, which is fantastic for any kind of sauces or other things that you want to use that you want to keep kind of a nice texture in it. The cloves seem huge. So I do feel like the ones on the outside are always kind of wide and large, and then as you work your way in, they get smaller. And I do always try to balance because I'm like, average size, let's go average clove, and try to keep it to a middle guy. So typically, I think I've got the 4 cloves should be if you're grating it down or you're using a paste, it should be about 2 teaspoons if you're measuring by volume of the garlic. And then I'm trying to think. I think that's about, I want to say 2 teaspoons is about, it's somewhere between 4 and 6 grams worth of garlic. So if that's helpful for you and you want to keep your recipe consistent, that's kind of the number that you're going to be hitting. But yeah, again, as I said before, measure with your heart when it comes to garlic. So I'm going to turn my stovetop on. I am going to put this on low and I'm just going to let it sit. And there is a difference, right? So there's a difference between preparing garlic any of these ways. So obviously, like I said, the fresh garlic is going to be more astringent. It's going to be peppery. You're grating it right in. All of this cooking does not need to happen. It is kind of optional. If you do decide that you want to roast your garlic the way that we have that upstairs in the aluminum foil, that is going to be nice and soft and mellow, and you kind of can just squeeze the cloves right out of the bulb and then use them. When it comes to the confit garlic, this is going to be, it's gonna have a more roasted flavor. It's definitely not as soft of a flavor as the roasted garlic in the oven because oil is going to heat up so much more than just like an air temperature in an oven. Oil gets very hot. And so it will continue to heat, and that's why you have to keep it on low. It has to be cooked gently because it can very, very easily burn your garlic. And if you burn your garlic, it will be bitter. And so it does tend to be kind of a more roasted flavor and a less sweet flavor than what you're getting up in the oven. So just based on what you want to have. If you want to have it fresh and peppery, if you want to have a sweet mellow, and you want to have like a kind of roasted mellow flavor, then you're gonna go with the comfy. And you can just kind of make your decision based on what you like and go from there. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start preparing the leeks and the onions and getting those ready to be cooked. Now I have listed 5 medium leeks. It's about 7 cups worth of chopped leeks, 575 grams, give or take. I've got a stack of 6. These are what I would consider Jesus. Okay, leeks are also very dirty. That's all dirt. I'm gonna show you guys how to cut and clean them after I clean my cutting board because I just dumped everything out on it. But I've got 5 leeks. I would consider this a medium leek. This is kind of what I would consider. I have seen much smaller than this. This is probably going to give me about 150 grams, give or take. And so I need to get to 500 or so. So I'll probably need 4 of these. This one, like some of them are slightly thicker than the other ones. I have seen bundles of leeks that are like pretty large around. And if you're finding those, you're not going to need 5. You will need less. So it's really just kind of what kind of produce you see. And how big the leeks are for when you're purchasing them for how many you will need. Honestly, having leeks in your house is not a terrible thing. For those of you who have not cooked with leeks before, they're basically like a really mellow onion. But there is something to be said about how you prepare them. So not only are they really dirty, right? And you need to like clean them a specific way, you also don't eat this part. Like all this green, you're basically gonna sit somewhere in the light green all the way down into the white. A lot of really nice restaurants are only gonna use like the white part of the leek because this is going to have the most mellow flavor, and it is going to render and cook down better than this. The greener it is, the more fibrous it is, the less it will cook down. And so like this part here, I don't know if you can see. Let's see, do we have our overhead camera on? Okay, so if you can see the white stripes that are in here, this is all cellulose. So this is the like internal structure of the leek, and this cellulose is it's tough and it does not break down. It's kind of like the ends of asparagus, or I'm trying to think of what else. If you're chopping up like green onions or something like that, especially if you grow them in your garden and the bases of the green onions get really thick and you get that cellulose in it, they're never soft and they don't break down. So unless you're blending it, doing whatever, it's kind of one of those things that you don't typically use it, and the flavor profile is very different from the white part of it all the way up into the green part of it. This gets more bitter. It gets like way more like punchy. And so unless you're attempting to do that with your recipe, I would really only suggest keeping the tops of leeks for like making stock. So like a vegetable stock or a fish stock or chicken stock or something like that. I would chop these off, and then I would just like toss them in the freezer and use them whenever I'm making a stock in place of onions or alongside onions. But yeah, when you're cooking to eat with a leek, you're going to be sticking to the light green part and kind of going down. So I know this looks like a whole lot. You're like, Carrie, this is like 300 grams right here. Yes, but we're not using all of it. We're only using kind of like the bottom half of this. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your knife and you're going to go straight from where the roots are. Don't go all the way down because you do want to keep it intact. It's kind of like when you're cutting an onion and you leave the roots intact so that when you're doing your dice, it doesn't just kind of slide and fall all over the place. It's the same concept, but you're going to make a kind of a plus sign or a cross. So you're going to go straight down one, and then you're going to turn it 90 degrees, and you're going to do the same thing. You're going to go right up along the root. And like you can see, look at all that dirt And this is a grocery store. It's not like I didn't get this from like a farmer's market or anything like that. It's just because of how they grow up in the soil. Let me turn that off real quick. So leeks start under the soil and grow up through the soil. And so as they grow, they're taking all of that dirt and it's kind of growing into the layers and then it sits there. And there's really nothing that like farmers can do about it. So like you always have to clean your leeks, especially. I know a lot of us get around cleaning fruits and vegetables and stuff like that, or we try to. We're like, it's fine, just eat it, whatever. But really, like you're gonna end up eating sand, and we don't want grit and sand in our food. So this is like, if you decided you don't care about like pesticides or wax or whatever, that's fine. But like, you don't want to eat sand, right? Like let's keep that out. So there is no such thing. That's right. Thank you. There is absolutely no such thing as a clean leek. Just doesn't exist. They just don't grow that way. It's impossible. Unless somebody like is selling them like pre-cut and like it says like pre-washed, pre-cut, pre-washed or whatever. If you're getting like a whole leek like this, like there's going to be dirt in them. So yeah. Okay. So what you're gonna do is you're basically gonna just kind of split. I should have done this. Actually, let me do this with a dry one so that I can show you guys how to work through this. We're gonna do the same thing, right? I'm gonna cut, turn it 90, cut again. It's not always going to be like the perfect, you're gonna have like little slivers and strips and things like that, and some will be kind of thicker and some strips will be thinner because it's really hard to get like a perfect 90 degrees. And a lot of the time leeks don't grow straight up. They kind of will grow at a curve or something like that. But don't worry about it. That's not a big deal. Everything will cook the same. This is gonna get blended. Having like perfect slices and dices is not a big deal with this recipe. But you're gonna open it up and we've got all of our layers from all the places that we cut, right? So we've got all 4 sides and we're gonna open it up and we're just gonna wash in between all the layers. So that's what I'm doing over here. Making sure that I get all that sand out and literally pull apart each one of those and get in between the layers and then give it a nice shake down, nice little shake out after you've gone through and cleaned out in between each one of those. Okay. And I'm actually gonna just set that down over here. I should have brought a colander down here. Okay. Do the other one. Again, and like if you really want to, it's just kind of one of those like, if you've ever gotten your hair dyed the way that I get my hair dyed and like you want to get a haircut and they'll like cut your hair before they put the color in because they don't want to waste it. If you don't want to like waste extra time getting grit off of the top of the leek, you can always cut down to exactly where you want to be like using first and then clean it and then kind of go back. But if I'm going to use the tops in soup, I might as well clean the whole thing is kind of my idea on that one. But if you don't plan on keeping them, you're welcome to like cut down to here, then cut your 4 pieces and then just toss this stuff and don't worry about cleaning it too. Really up to you. Okay, that's clean. Let's do another one. So like, say, I'll give an example. So I've been cutting them right all the way up, but if I'm only gonna use, say like this, right? And then this would get tossed. I wouldn't even bother cleaning it. Why am I gonna bother cleaning it if I'm not gonna use it? And then do one of these. Okay, got your 4. Give it a little open up. Make sure you have access to all your layers and then give it a wash. think I'm gonna need one more. We'll find out. And I can always do another one if I need it, but I don't wanna do more than I need right now. Okay, do the last one. The same way, I cut off the parts that I'm not gonna use. Open it all the way up, make sure I have access to all of my layers. And really get in between each and every one of them. I feel like celery can be like this too, because celery grows the same way, but because they don't have like the same kind of layers, like because it's just a stalk, they're like not nearly as dirty, but like down in the bottom of celery can get like a lot of dirt in it too. Okay, and then I do want to just rinse off my board and my knife again, because I do have so much dirt on my cutting board. I don't want that to get into my soup. Okay. Okay, so now we're gonna prep stuff. I need to prep some onions, and I want to get these leeks just set aside. Oh, I'm hearing some boiling. Okay. So let me just do this real quick. This is too much. I heard it. This is too high of a heat. I'm going to turn it down. And I'm actually going to take a really, really long time to put it back on the burner, because this is an electric cooktop and not induction. So the time that it takes to like cool off is a lot, like a lot longer of a range for the range to cool down before I put that back on. So I'm gonna give it a minute before I put that back on. You want it to be like, so it's boiling, but it's like a super, super, super low simmer. So like a bubble here and there is kind of what you're going for when you're confying something. The whole point of like a really gentle simmer or a very low simmer is that at the bottom it is boiling temperature, but by the time it gets to the top, it's not. And so the food that you're cooking at a gentle simmer doesn't hit that boiling point all at once, the way that a rolling boil is it's kind of the difference between like roasting in an oven and then using like without a fan, and then using convection and using like with the fan on in the oven. If you are using convection, the whole oven temperature is going to be the same. It's going to be really uniform. If you're not using that, then it's directional heat from the coils that are heating the oven. And that's kind of the difference between a rolling boil and then like having a simmer. And so we are trying to do that. We're trying to maintain something that is like mostly under boiling point and not like direct heat, or in like a little like or gentle direct heat, I should say. A gentle direct heat on the very bottom, what's touching the metal, and then everything above that is like a slightly lower temperature. Okay, so let's do our onion real quick. I'll show you guys how to do this, and I'll show you guys how to prep these guys. I do need, that's what I was looking for, was a bowl. I need a bowl for our food so that I can measure them out. I am going to be using, I'm gonna be using a kitchen scale today. I do have imperial measurements. I have like measured by volume, cups and teaspoons and things like that in the recipe, but I also use metric in all of my recipes, because I think that weighing things out gives you just a much more consistent meal, product, recipe, whatever that is, than using something by volume. Just because the weight of something and the viscosity of something determines like how much you're getting. And volume can be kind of like a weird thing depending on like how you're scooping and pouring and like what the ingredient is. And it's just easier to like weigh everything out. And then I don't have to get like measuring spoons and measuring cups messy. I can kind of just weigh something out and just keep adding. And I really appreciate that when I'm like moving around my kitchen, and I'm sure my husband does too, because he cleans the dishes. So I get to have a good time and not have to worry about making a mess that I know he's gonna have to clean later. And so I'm going to chop up my our like cleaned leeks here. and we're going to weigh them out on our kitchen scale and get to the number that we want. And then I'll cut up my onion as well. Okay, so basically what I'm going to do, and these are like a rough chop, okay? Again, like we just need this to kind of soften, cook down a little bit, and then it's going to get blended. So we do not need to worry, right? We do not need to worry about having it like really, really thinly sliced. We're not trying to do this. And if you wanted this to be a like rustic soup, in theory, you could like just kind of have everything really small diced, and like kind of have a chicken stock surrounded by vegetables. So it'd be more like a vegetable stew, or like a vegetable soup than the creamy leek and potato. But I am going for a creamy leek and potato. So things are going to get blended today. Not how you expect, but they are going to get blended. Okay. So I'm just going to do one of these, give her a chop down. And we are going to go all the way down to the root, to basically where I kind of drew that line, that initial like go almost down to the root, right? And so notice like as I'm chopping, it's kind of the same thing with an onion, is as I'm chopping, none of it is kind of falling all over the place because it's still connected to this root. Okay. So all this is gonna go in. So I've got about, I've got 220 odd grams here. Maybe we do need one more of these. Okay, now I'm going to find, I still have some dirt at the top of this. I even missed all of that. I worked so hard to clean it and it's still a little dirty. So now what I'm gonna do, you'll notice like this one was the one that I chopped the top off, then cleaned what I knew I was going to cook. This one is not that. I just kind of stripped it, did the whole thing. I'm gonna find a point where I'm not seeing that cellulose structure, right? And where it's kind of a little bit lighter and a little less tough. You'll notice sometimes the outer strips, even though they're white too, can get a little bit like they're a little tough. So if you're noticing that your knife is not cutting through something, and this is the same thing with like artichokes, like if you're buying like canned artichokes for like a spinach and artichoke dip or something like that, if your knife is not cutting through an outer layer, it's not gonna break down, even if you boil it or do whatever. So just take it off and just use it for stock or throw it away. Don't attempt to try to use something that is going to hinder the final result of your meal. So if your knife doesn't cut through it, your teeth aren't going to cut through it, so don't use it. Okay, so I'm kind of working my way around here. This seems like a good spot. It's a nice light green color. This stuff gets a little bit darker, so I'm going to move those up there, and I'm not going to use that. Really needed a bigger bowl for those. And then what we're going to do is the same thing. Just chop right through. Okay. Okay. And then the same thing with this. Gonna find a nice light green all around. Okay. Move that up there. And then do the same thing. Add it. Ooh, yep, I need one more. I did need 5. I had a feeling they looked like they were like a medium leek size, and I was like, these aren't really big. I'm gonna get 2 bunches. Let's do this guy, and I am gonna do, I wanna know where if you can't really tell where the light green starts, because it's too dirty or it's kind of old, and it's got a little bit of browning on it or whatever, just strip that outside piece off, and now I've got a much better understanding of where I need to cut. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna have to rinse my board off again, but that is okay. I'm kind of thinking maybe I should just do all of these to make sure that I have enough, but so I don't have to keep getting my board dirty. It is what it is. C'est la vie. Okay. You can hear all the grit on the countertop. Oh my goodness. Leeks are so dirty. Okay, let's do some more. As soon as I get this weighed out correctly, I'm going to check on my garlic back there to make sure that it is, put it back on the stove top and get it back to cooking. Okay. I need 50 more grams. Honestly, I'm thinking, here's what we're going to do. Are you ready? Okay, I'm going to teach you guys a little trick here. So I'm going to actually take some of the inside leek leaves pieces that are light and like kind of lower in the cellulose because they're newer. So these are newer kind of shoots that are coming up, right? So it's kind of growing up and the outside gets really tough and the inside stays kind of soft. So you can kind of fudge the inside strips a little bit more than you can with the outside ones. And so I'm just looking for some ones that are like still really pliable. And I'm gonna see if I can get 50 grams out of this so that I don't have to cut up this last leek for no reason. Because it's gonna be like more than I need if I do that. So that's maybe that piece. All these little guys. But like you can see how it gets shiny? You've got this white material here. That is too thick. That is never gonna break down. We're avoiding that. We're trying to grab these little pieces, right, that don't have that. Okay. Okay, we're gonna call this good. Oop. This is close enough for me. Quite a bit of leeks. I'm only 10 grams off, so I'm happy with that. I actually can too. We'll do this. We'll be 5 grams off, give or take. Maybe 7. There we go. Okay, now for the onion. As I said before, this is not about having perfectly diced onions. This is a rough chop. I'm honestly not even gonna like go crazy on this. I'm gonna cut the top and the bottom off, and I'm just gonna really, really roughly chop this into a couple of pieces. I just need this to like turn translucent, break down a little bit, cook with the leeks, and call it a day. This is going to get blended down. As long as it's cooking in the correct amount of time, it does not matter. So what I'm going to do is I've actually cut this in half. So now I have flat surfaces, right? So I've cut the top and the bottom off, cut it in half. I've got a nice flat surface. I'm going to cut like this, and then I'm just gonna do this. Easy. And now the sizes of the onion are basically the sizes of the leek. And that's kind of what we're going with. So they can all kind of cook at the same rate. Okay, whew, my eyes. Holy cow. Hold on. Ooh, that onion was ready. The old rustic chop, exactly. Oh my God. Cover that up, Jesus. That got me. I have very sensitive eyes. I've got little baby eyes. Okay, let me pull this guy forward. We're gonna start to get some cooking and stuff done now. As soon as I I'll plug this guy in, because I did not do that. There we go. Okay, so typically right now I would kind of prep some of the items that are gonna go in. I know my garlic is not done yet. I would be like, it's about 40 minutes to an hour up there in the oven. And I do tend to like cook this because this takes about 15 minutes or so to soften this plus the onions. And by the time I've prepped all of this, that is ready. And so I think what I am going to do, how do I want to do this today? Do I want to do this the same way as the recipe? Yeah, we'll stick to the recipe. Okay, so what I am going to do, now that we've got this done, is we are going to pull our pot. Okay, this is the pot I'm going to be using today. Okay, and we're going to start getting it warm. And I'm going to kind of get certain things measured out and ready to go. And then we're going to just kind of have everything ready to kind of go in the pot the second that we need it to. So let's do this. We're going to turn this guy on. We've got our onion and our leeks already prepped and ready. Okay. Let's see. There we go. I'm going to put some oil. There you go. I think I said something like 2 tablespoons, which is like an ounce, 30 milliliters. It's probably about 28 grams if you're actually weighing out your oil. Yeah, the interference of the cooktop. Sorry guys, I don't want to put my back to you, so we got the induction cooktop to use here. It's just is what it is, right? It should be okay. So far, so good? Okay, cool. I like that. That's awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna let this heat up. I'm gonna put the leeks in first. They are more fibrous than the onion, and so I want them to get a little bit of extra time cooking down before I put the onion in. Usually onion is like the first thing to go in, but in this instance, we're actually gonna do the leeks first. Okay, let's do this. I'm gonna toss our leeks in. Get these guys going. If you really wanna get these softening faster, like if you do not have the time to just kind of like let things brown a little bit, kind of really cook down on their own a little bit, you can always put a lid on top. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna trap all of the moisture that's coming off, all the steam that's coming off of the leeks. And it'll send it back down, and just keeping that moisture in there is gonna make everything wilt and cook a little bit faster. So if you do need to move faster, you absolutely can. We are not looking to have these brown or burn. I really do want these to kind of like gently cook and get translucent. If there's a little bit of browning, that is okay. But if you're seeing anything that looks like it might burn, or you can't scrape off the bottom of your pot with ease or any of that kind of stuff, it shouldn't be a problem because you're literally covering the whole bottom of the pot with vegetables. So there should be enough moisture that you're not gonna have that issue. But if it is on too high of a temperature and you start to see that, turn it down. Because when leeks brown, they get bitter, and we don't want that to happen. We want our soup to be delicious. We don't want it to have that problem. Typically, if you're seeing somebody char a leek, it's really common in like Northern Italian cooking to cook leeks. They kind of like cook them on coals, but what it is you're essentially steaming the inside. They cook them whole, and they char the outside and then peel off the outside and eat the inside, which has been like completely steamed, and it's really good. And so you get like a smokiness from what happened to the outside of it, but you don't actually eat the char because that char is bitter, but the inside's real nice. All right, so I'm supposed to use, let's see, it's 1.2 grams of kosher salt, about 1/2 teaspoon. That's basically this. So I'm just gonna do this. I taste as I go anyway. It is what it is. The salt is gonna help pull moisture out of the leeks and the onions. That is what its job is. Obviously, it's also gonna like punch up the flavor, but its job for this purpose is to help the leeks cook down. You can see they're getting a little bit of moisture on the outside of them, but their structure is still really firm. We want that to kind of wilt and fall over. They will get a little translucent, just like onions. They'll go from white to like kind of like an off yellow color on the white portions of the leek, and that's what you're looking for. Also, this smells really good. Okay. And the garlic is looking real nice. All of these little pieces here that I've got, that is all gonna end up going in my freezer to be used at a later date. I should probably clean that up. I'll put it in here. Okay. All of this is prime stock ingredients. Even the skins of the onion, like all that. Okay, set this aside. Does anybody have this? Yes, it is oval shaped. This Dutch oven is oval shaped. I really like it. There are like certain like sizes that like only come in this shape, and this was the like the size that I wanted, and so like I ended up with an oval one instead of a round one. I do have a really large round Dutch oven as well, but this soup I'm not doubling the recipe or making something in bulk, so I don't need that big of a Dutch oven today. So we're using this instead. Turn that down. I'm starting to see a little bit of browning here at the bottom. You'll notice that if I just move stuff around, there's still enough moisture that it's taking it up and nothing is really sticking. So that is good. That is fine. I'm just going to turn this down just to watch kind of the temperature. And make sure that I am not doing something that I don't want to be doing. Okay. And it is good to kind of move things around, right, and release some of that steam and move stuff that's kind of touching the bottom of the pot around so it doesn't end up sticking and burning. But it is also really good to make sure that once you're done stirring, that you do put it down like back into a layer so that it can kind of continue to trap the steam in its layers and kind of cook at a uniform rate, if that makes sense. It's a kind of like you control the moisture retention, you control the steam, you release it when you want to or when you don't want to. And you could also have a lid on this and it just be cooking on a lower temperature with a lid, but you do still need to stir it because you don't want stuff to stick to the bottom of the pan. But you can start to see, so like some of them are going kind of translucent and they're flimsy. That's what you're looking for. Make soup for the whole neighborhood. I mean, yeah. I'll make like triple batches of stuff all the time and then just like put it in a bunch of containers and then I've got soup for whenever I want it. Yeah, we're sweating. We are sweating. I'm not looking for browning. I'm looking to sweat these down. Yeah. Okay, do we have any questions? My watch cross, yeah. Okay. Okay, so now this is a good part. This is a good place to now put our onions in. So that's what I'm going to do. Toss these guys in. Get these going. I used to watch Emerald as well. Emerald and Jacques Torre and Alton Brown. So good. OG Cooking Network was really something. It really, really was. I still think his New York style cheesecake is like, that's like my go-to cheesecake recipe. Emerald's New York style cheesecake. Very good. Okay, and so now I'm looking for the onions to kind of get to the same point that the leeks are right now. And once you've hit that, and the onions have kind of sweated down, gotten translucent, gotten a little flimsy, at that point, then we can start adding in some of our other ingredients. So while this is cooking, now I'm gonna prep some of our other ingredients. It's kind of nice, this recipe. A lot of the times when you're making soups and stews, everything is done at like a very high temperature and it's like a rapid pace kind of thing. But because we don't want this to brown and we want it to kind of like gently cook and just let off moisture, I kind of have the time. I have the time to prep the other stuff, which is like really nice. So let's start doing that. I'm gonna start measuring out some of the other ingredients we need. That is looking good. I'm seeing just tiny little bubbles come to the surface every now and then. It's exactly where I want it to be. Actually, we can show you. Woo. There you go. So this is not like fully done. We're still gonna use it, but it's not fully done. Typically what you'll see, and hopefully by the end of the stream, it will be about ready to be done so that I can show you what you're looking for, but you can see all just like little tiny bubbles just on the surface. There's not a lot going on. Above the pot, you got it. Okay, so you can see like it's cooled off just a touch, but you can see a little bit of bubbles just sitting at the surface. There's not a rolling boil. There's not a lot of bubbles, just like a couple that are kind of like clinging to the surface of the garlic or popping a little bit at the surface, like little by little. The oil is going to turn a golden color, and the garlic will also turn like kind of like an off-white, slightly like beige color when they are done. And the oil is really nice to use as well. Like using that oil in like a mayo or something is like peak. So good. Okay, back to what we were working on. So now I'm going to do a tablespoon of miso paste, which is about 18 grams. I'm specifically using white miso paste to not be confused with red miso paste. This is the only miso paste that I have access to right now. If you are going to get miso paste and you have access to the tubs of like thick miso paste, please purchase that. It is stronger and better flavored than what I'm using. I'm honestly thinking about using a little bit more than what I have in this recipe just because I know that this specific product in the pouch is just not as pungent as the thicker pastes that are in the tubs. So if you have access to like an Asian market or something like that, get your hands on some red miso paste and some white miso paste. And this, I think I got this from like, I got this from Trader Joe's. It's okay in a pinch, but it's not my favorite. So I've made mayo with the oil I've fried onions in before. Oh my gosh, yeah, I bet that was really good. Okay. Did you like widen out the camera? So I'm just gonna do, yeah, all right, I'm actually gonna do a little bit more than 18 grams just because I think I want a little bit more with this stuff. But you're looking for 18 grams or about a tablespoon of white miso paste. That's that. And then I am going to take some of the garlic cloves out in a minute, but we're gonna actually skip those. It's the next ingredient, but because it's not fully done, I'm just gonna let it cook a little longer and I'll come back to it. Typically I would like put the paste in here and I would just like mix it up so that they were kind of like uniform and like well mixed, and then that would go in, but we're gonna do them separately today just because I've got that cooking back there. Honey, if you want, I guess it's been cooking for about an hour. If you want to grab the garlic that's in the oven upstairs, you can bring that down. Okay, we've got our chicken stock is already ready. I've got some bay leaves ready to go. And then the Parmesan rind. This is an optional thing. It just adds a little bit of savoriness and just a little bit of like saltiness to the soup. But it's optional. You don't need to use this. If you wanted to do a vegetable stock instead of a chicken stock and then not use the Parmesan rind, you can have a completely vegetarian meal. And yeah, or I guess technically vegetarian or vegan meal. And it would be a wonderful soup and you don't need to worry about it. But I do like to have this in mind. So I've got some old rinds that I tossed in the freezer after I finished with the cheese, and I keep the rinds to toss into things like ragouts or I can go get it. He's trying to sneak without being on camera. You're so funny.
Probably touch it.
Oh yeah, I can't touch it. Hold on a second. I'll get a towel. Yeah, I'm just gonna go grab a hot pan that came out of the oven. That's what I'm gonna do. Thank you. Okay, let's take a look at what we've got here. So basically, when you unwrap these little pouches, don't go from the top. You're gonna wanna pull from the outside and then pull this way. If you go from the top, you're gonna get all that steam on your hands and that's not gonna feel good. I'm gonna let this rest for a little bit. Oh, it looks like I didn't do enough oil. This was a really old bulb of garlic, really old, but some of it is smushy. So, okay, we're gonna let this cool and I will come back to it. And then I'll show you guys how to kind of just like pinch some of that out and use that as a paste. But that is ready to go. I had a feeling. It was a really small bulb as well, and they cook a little faster than the bigger ones. Okay, this is actually ready. You can see that our leeks have really started cooking down. They're mostly kind of like all flat and flimsy. I don't have any that are like that kind of perfect kind of U shape that they were, right? And then the onion has also gotten translucent. I almost can't pick it out between the cooked leeks and like the onion pieces. They look almost the same. That's where I want that to be. Okay, so this is ready to start adding our other ingredients too. I am going to actually do the potatoes because these are going to be boiling in here for a while. And I'm going to sit with you guys while these potatoes boil, because there's nothing else to do in the interim except maybe talk about the garlic. Okay, so I'm just peeling. I could make this go faster for us by cutting the potato pieces smaller, but I'm not going to do that for two reasons. The first being that the larger the potato pieces, the more potato flavor you get, the less watery the potatoes end up being, the better texture and flavor in your soup. The second part of that is that if I cut the pieces really small, I have to fish the pieces out and like then put them through a potato ricer, which is, surprise, surprise, the key thing here. That is our new technique, or that is the technique to use for the perfect texture. And if the pieces are really small, it's hard to differentiate the potato pieces versus all of the leek and onion and stuff that's kind of floating around in the soup. And we don't want that. I want to be able to pick just like a couple pieces of potato out and call it a day. You need 3 medium potatoes. I don't know if did I measure that out, or was that just like 700 grams. Okay, so you need about 700 grams of potato. And we are gonna cut those into rather large chunks so that they're easier to fish out. We get better texture, you get better flavor. If you really, really, really wanted to, you could, like if the potatoes were roughly the same size like these are, you could just toss the whole potatoes in and then just take 3 pieces of potato out. It just takes a lot longer to cook. So I'm kind of like compromising and finding something in the middle. We're just slightly overlapping tasks here so that we can be a little bit more efficient. Okay. So I'm going to add in my miso paste. You do want to get a little bit of like cooking the umami ingredients at the bottom of the pan, the garlic and the miso paste specifically. You do want to get a little bit of that going, even if there is still moisture in here. Again, we're still not trying to brown, but just like any amount of like kind of cooking before you add the liquid in is going to just boost the flavors a little bit more. So we're gonna do that. And then apparently low is not low back here. That's fine. Let's do a little bit of this. Feels like it's good enough temperature now. So let's try squeezing out some of this. You basically take your hands and you pinch. You just push down and then squeeze out. So it's still a little hot, but you're basically gonna get something like this like paste. And that is what's gonna go in. I think that was like a half a clove. This was hot. It's oil, so it's hot. I tried my best. It was a really old bulb. Yeah, that's still really hot. I'm gonna just switch to the stuff that I was comfying. Honestly, I might do a little of each. We'll do one of each. How's that? You got 1 clove from there, you squeeze that, you get a couple of cloves out. You need 4 for this recipe or more if you really wanna do more. So I've got 1 from there. I'm gonna pull 1 out from here, and then I'm actually gonna also grate a fresh one, because why not? Or I'll pull 2 from the pot in the back. Ooh, I've got oil on my fingers now. Okay, so we've got our microplane. You're gonna not use the bottom of it. If you wanna cut the bottom off, you can. But if I'm grating the garlic, cutting the bottom off means that I have to use the whole thing, and I really don't like going all the way down because I always feel like I'm gonna grate my finger and I don't wanna do that. So I'm gonna leave the bottom on for this, and then you just kind of run it along your microplane or zester. If you have a zester, that also will work. This just gives you a nice kind of paste. You could also really finely mince your garlic and then crush it with the blade of your knife. Okay, so now I've got like a nice little paste there. If you finely dice or mince your onion, or, oh my goodness, if you finely mince your garlic into something like, say, let's see, let's get some small pieces here, like this, and then you take your knife and push down like this, you can also create a paste. If you don't have a zester or a microplane, that is also an option. If you're looking for a way to do that, that is how you do that. And then let me, ooh. Okay, I left my tongs upstairs, so we're going to use some ice tongs. Why not? Do I have another set of tongs down here? Oh, okay, we're gonna use these. Why not? Let's do it. Okay, so we've got our garlic here that has not been fully cooked through, but we're gonna make do. Hey guys, using these is hard. Okay, let's do this one and this one. I'll use those again to fish the potato pieces out later. That's really funny, actually. And so what I'm going to do with these now, these were in oil. They are going to be hot, but I'm going to be careful. And these aren't fully cooked through, but they should be, yeah. So again, I'm just using the back of the blade of my knife. And now I've got a nice paste. No dicing necessary. Okay. Did everybody get that? Do I need to did I demonstrate well enough the different kind of ways to make that work? Do you feel like, does anybody need like a better explanation or more clarification or anything? Any questions? Okay. Gonna move that around the pot. So I've got my miso paste, now I've got my garlic in. Again, we're just cooking at a like medium-low temperature, letting things go. Really trying to keep the flavor delicate in all of the ways. Savory but delicate is what we are shooting for. Once I can smell that garlic get fragrant, that's when I'm gonna add in my chicken stock. You could have melted all of this. I'm just lazy. So that's just gonna get put in and I'm gonna let it melt like on its own. And then start cooking. Watching you explain garlic was like Harry Potter getting the Half-Blood Prince's potion book. You have to crush it instead of chop it. I'm sad to say I understand that reference and I'm with you on that. That's really funny. Okay, so I'm also going to prep my potatoes, and basically what I'm going to do is I'm putting like that, nice big chunks so that I can fish them out later. Okay. That's so funny. Okay, I'm smelling this garlic. It smells real nice. We're gonna start just adding in our chicken stock. And what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna clear the bottom so that they can really start cooking. And I'm gonna raise the temperature up because once this starts to actually melt, there's gonna be so much liquid in the pot that it's gonna be like impossible to burn anything. So we're gonna bring that up real high. Make some space if we can. And let these melt. There we go. Okay. I brought the power up on my cooktop. I'm basically at like medium high heat, somewhere in there. And then once this melts fully, I'm gonna toss the potatoes in. It would have been better if I had like stock in a container or pre-made stock that I had melted and had like warmed on the back burner. That would have been better, but it's just a little bit longer. It's not a big deal. For those of you who want to make homemade stock, this recipe online does include a recipe or instructions to make chicken stock. So you can use that. I made this with that in mind. So a couple of things about using a store-bought stock. First of all, just get better than bouillon. The better than bouillon chicken paste, stock paste, or whatever we want to call that, bouillon paste, is going to be much more economical. Especially with everything now, it's going to be much more economical for you to use that over just getting boxed stock. Boxed stock, unless you're purchasing it from a small business that makes it like, kind of like makes it for real. If you're getting like some other kind of box stock. It's bouillon that's just been just has water in it. It's not anything extra special. It's not like making it from home. And so just don't bother. Just buy the bouillon, follow the instructions, make 6 cups worth of what you need and go from there. Now, I will also say that the bouillon is going to be saltier than what I'm using because I do not add salt to my chicken stock when I make chicken stock. I am using a pre-cooked rotisserie chicken, so there is some salt there, but it is not nearly as salty as the bouillon base will be. So if you are worried about salt, go ahead and buy the box stuff and get something that's low sodium and then use that and salt to your preference. If you're not really worried about the salt and you're like, I'm cool with that, not a big deal, I can add less salt or no salt when I'm doing this and then taste and finish off at the end to my preferences, the bouillon is going to be better economically for you. So just, figure out what you would like. The flavor cubes are okay. Somebody just brought up flavor cubes, the little dehydrated cubes that you can get, and they're usually, I guess sometimes they're in the stock aisle, sometimes they're in the international aisle. They've got like a little green like rooster on them or chicken, whatever on them. It's like a yellow box. You can purchase those. I still think the paste is better. The paste has more flavor, and the cubes have. I don't even know how to say this. The cubes are just not as good. They're fine if you're doing like sauce, like pan sauces or things like that. But if you're going for like a full stock, like making 6 cups of stock, the paste is going to be just infinitely better than those cubes are going to be for you. Okay. Yes, tell your wife to get those. Oh my goodness. Yes, paste over cube. That's all I've ever really used them for, small stuff, so good to know. Yes, yeah. They're great in small stuff, or if you want to add just a hint of extra flavor to something that already has flavor. But by and large, if you're going straight for a chicken stock and that is a main component, use the paste. Or make chicken stock at home. One weekend, break down a rotisserie chicken, eat it for lunch, and then toss all the bones and the leftover skin and any leftover meat in a pot with some carrots and some celery and some onion tops. The leeks, if you're planning on making this, you can take the leek tops and put the leek tops in there and then keep the bottoms for when you actually make the soup. And then I think I have I like to put a couple of other things. I like to put half a lemon, some coriander, some black peppercorns, maybe some thyme or some bay leaf or something like that when I'm making it at home. I don't know what I had in the recipe because I did not actually put the recipe here. I just kind of assumed that people would have chicken stock in their pantry somewhere. But the recipe is there. If you go to this recipe on my website, alittlespoon.com, the link should be in the notes section underneath this video if you did find this at a later date. And there is a chicken stock recipe in there. So if you do want to make it, you can. And chicken stock can be made months in advance. So if you want to make a big batch of chicken stock and get somewhere between 8 to 14, 16 cups, whatever, depending on how many batches you make at once, you can make a whole bunch of chicken stock and then do what I do and just break it up into smaller containers, freeze it, and then you have plenty of chicken stock anytime you want to make a soup, a stew, a sauce, whatever. We had a bit of an audio issue, so welcome back. I was putting the potatoes into my stock and letting everybody know that if you are going to cook potatoes and anything that you want potatoes to be pureed or mashed, or somehow completely dissolved into something. So a gnocchi, a mashed potato, or a creamy potato soup of some kind, what you're going to want to do is put the potato pieces into your liquid when it is still cold or room temperature. You do not want it to be boiling and then put potatoes into a boiling liquid because what happens is the outside cooks too quickly. It cooks faster than the inside, obviously. But so much so that the outside gets really starchy. It starts to kind of slough off the potatoes, and then you end up with a gummy, mealy texture. So the longer the potatoes can kind of stay together and cook as uniformly as possible, the better. So if you start at a lower temperature, it's going to give time for the center to warm and cook in a little bit more uniform of a fashion than if it was already boiling and that outside immediately gets hit with a high heat. So that's what we are doing right now. This is still obviously cold. I still have little chicken stock ice cubes in here, but I am feeling some warmth. So they're almost done. They're almost done melting. And then we are going to just let this cook through. We're going to finish prepping the rest of our ingredients, and I'm going to sit here for a little bit while these have to cook because it's going to take a little bit. So we're going to go. You can, I typically like to cook potatoes at a low kind of boil. I am going to let this cook at a higher temperature today just to kind of get it done a little bit faster. But I typically would let this cook at the same kind of boil that I would for like a mashed potato, which really means like you're seeing kind of bubbles pop on the surface. You get a little bit of that foam on the surface, but it's not a rolling boil. I'm gonna let this get a little closer to a rolling boil today just to move things along a little bit better. But that is, yeah, we've got all of our stock. Okay, so all of our stock is now melted. I've got my potatoes in. They're gonna start cooking and going. And I'm just gonna let this chill. I'm gonna let that chill. We're gonna toss in these guys, our bay leaf. We're gonna toss in our Parmesan rind. Those also have to get fished out later. It's gonna be hard to find those. I usually like to have like one long strip of Parmesan so that I can find it easier. That is not what I just tossed in there, so we'll see how easy that is to fish out later. We'll see. Check on these guys. That's good. That's starting to turn golden. That's real nice. We've got our thyme. We have some white pepper. We have some nutmeg. The nutmeg is just to finish. But those are our kind of like last ingredients here. So I'm going to prep those. I've got 2 sprigs of thyme. Whoop. This is probably about 2 sprigs of thyme. I'm just going to use this one here because it's really big. And we are going to just pick off the leaves. When you are messing with thyme, I know thyme is like one of the most frustrating herbs to use because you have to be like so careful. The stalks and the stems of thyme are really bitter and woody, and it's not a great flavor, especially if you're trying to keep something like nice and delicate like a soup. And so what you're gonna do is you're gonna strip the kind of leaves off and just like make a little pile of leaves. Sometimes you'll get like a really nice strip like this where it's like one long stem and then like no offshoots. Other times you'll get like a ton of offshoots, and that can be really frustrating because you can't just do what I did. But I want to show you guys this. So you'll get pieces that are kind of like this. If the stem that the leaves are on is a young stem, if it's still green and it's really flimsy, you don't have to pull just the leaves off. You can use that part of the stem. But the second, like down here, it starts to get like less flexible. If it doesn't feel like you almost can't feel it when you're moving your finger through it, then you have to take it off. So I would like kind of pinch off that end, and I can use this entire thing, and that's fine. So like, just so you know, like when people are like, pick for the leaves and like only the leaves, and you're sitting there going, oh my God, especially like at Thanksgiving. At Thanksgiving, like my stuffing uses so much time, and I'm sitting there like, oh my God. You can use some of the stem. It's okay. If it's really young, you're not going to get the bitter. It's just when it starts to get tough and inflexible, that's where you kind of have to start worrying about that. And it is kind of a judgment call. So like if you're really nervous about it, you can do just the leaves. But like by and large, you can use some of the stems. You can. And it's okay. It won't hurt the dish. I promise. Okay, so just kind of working my way through, grabbing leaves from the pile here. We've got our boiling going over there. We are in a good place, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go. Okay. Honestly, all of this looks great. That's a little tough. Okay. Okay, so got my little bundle of thyme here. This is not going to go in until later. I turn that down. Okay, and now we're going to do our white pepper. This is just a grinder, so I'm just going to do a little bit of this. None of this stuff is going to get added right now. They're going to get added after the potatoes are done cooking. So the way that this is going to work is I'm going to fish the potatoes out. I'm going to stick them in this bowl here and let them just kind of release a little bit of extra steam and moisture. And everything that's left in the pot is going to get put into this blender back here. Okay. So the key to having a really light and creamy potato soup is to not over blend the potatoes. I could, and you totally can. If you're like, I just want to get this done with, I don't want to deal with it, your best bet is to do one of two things. You can take a stick blender and you can just blend everything together and have like a really kind of rustic leek and potato soup, or you can take all of the ingredients, stick them in a high-powered blender, let it go until it's done, and pour it back in. I do highly recommend having extra stock to thin it out, because what happens is the blades in the blender are going to so whip and agitate the potato that starch is going to gelatinize, and it's going to thicken it more than putting it through our potato ricer and just mixing it in to our blended vegetables and stock. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm avoiding the like potatoes getting gummy because they're overworked by pulling the potatoes out and separating them, blending the rest of the soup, putting the potatoes through the potato ricer, and then just kind of giving them a brief mix with the stick blender to make sure that everything kind of cooperates, combines, comes together, right? This is way too hot. Let's turn that down. And so that's kind of where like the technique lands, is it's like you're doing the best of both worlds. I'm getting a really blended down, creamy based soup, and then being super, super gentle with the potatoes and not overworking them. And that has given me kind of the best. You can fully just blend everything, have a perfectly lovely soup. You may have to add some more liquid to it because it might thicken up a little bit too much. Just keep that in mind, but it's still a perfectly good soup. Or you can get something more rustic and just use a single hand tool and like not have to clean a blender. It's really up to you. All three of those perfectly acceptable options. The technique that I'm going to do today is the one that I like the most for texture. And so that is why I'm doing what I'm doing. But you can follow along, obviously, and just kind of like watch me go through the motions, and we can take care of that. So, immersion blender time. Yeah, almost. Okay, I'm just going to give this a little bit of a stir. It's going to take some time. Okay. You are welcome to derail chat. That is A-okay. I'm just out here doing the kind of same thing. I'm just word vomiting. That's all. We're just rambling about food. Why not? Now you want soup for lunch? Yes. Okay, I only need half a teaspoon of this. Did way too much, that's okay. I am probably going to sneeze. Okay. I'm using white pepper instead of black pepper because white pepper, again, I had said we want to do something that's light. And the black pepper is a really harsh flavor to be adding. We're doing a white pepper for just a lighter peppery flavor that goes better with this dish. You can do black pepper if you really want black pepper. I would say use less because it will be a much more potent flavor. And the white pepper just will like melt into kind of the balance of the flavor a little bit better than black pepper. But if you don't have white pepper at home, just use some black pepper. Probably use about half of what I have in the recipe and you'll be fine. Everyone does I agree. Everyone overestimates white pepper. I agree. I agree. Okay, so we probably, I'm gonna just do a quick, for those of you who caught this at a later date, we'll be back in 30 minutes because that's how long it's gonna take for these potatoes to cook through. And I have nothing to do until then. So I will see you guys in 30 minutes and reintroduce you to where we are in the recipe when we get there. Cool. And we are back after letting these little suckers boil around for about 30 minutes. We are ready to go. I've got a little fork. You could also use like a paring knife, just something kind of thin. And you're going to check your potatoes by kind of piercing through. And you want to see a couple of different things. Let me grab my tongs real quick. I already kind of pierced through this a little bit, so you'll be able to see it. But you're gonna see a couple things. So the first thing you're gonna see is that you've got kind of like a starchy outside, right? So we kind of talked about how the outside's gonna get a little bit kind of starchy and you're gonna see all those pieces. It's not just like a raw potato anymore. And then when you put your fork or knife through the potato, it should go through without much resistance. It should feel smooth, like you're kind of pushing through Play-Doh. You shouldn't feel your fork kind of catch and make any kind of jittery motions as you're going through. It should just kind of slide in. It will have resistance. You obviously want it to have some resistance. You don't want it to be so boiled through that they just start falling apart. But it should not be crisp when you're kind of poking through that. And you will be able to feel that. Like there is a real difference between a potato that is like ready and a potato that is not. So I'm going to fish the potatoes out now. I'm going to use this guy here. And I'm going to try to get as much of the leeks off them as possible as I do this. And I can always pull the leeks out like I just did with the first piece. There we go. It's okay if a little bit of potato is left in here, as long as you get most of it out. Because remember, we are going to blend everything that's left in here, and I want to make sure that we are not going to gum up our soup. Okay. Oop. Trying to remember how many pieces of potato I put in. 3 potatoes cut into 4s, 12 pieces. We could do math. I'm honestly thinking that the fork would be better to get these out. Okay. We are gonna let these cool off just a touch and let them steam so that some of that moisture comes off of them. I don't want them to completely cool. But I also don't want them to be like super, super wet. We do want to let some of that steam off. Almost there. This is so funny. Something else that I can smell, and I know that I had mentioned that I had like the Parmesan rinds. I can smell them in the soup, which is like really nice. And I do need to find those as well. They're somewhere in here. Okay, I think that's 90% of the potato. Oh, that is a Parmesan rind. That's why I smelled it. That's Parmesan. I'm gonna eat this. Very honestly, I will be eating that. Okay, we're gonna take our bay leaves out. I did put 2, so I've gotta find the other one. Oh, found you. And then let's find that last rind. There she blows. Okay. So now we've got all the things that we don't want to be blended out of our soup. And I am going to just quickly pick off some of these pieces because they're going to get stuck in the potato ricer if I have them in there. I don't want the potato ricer to get blocked. Turn that off. Okay. Just kind of doing a quick pick through, just getting the stuff that looks like it's big so that I can make sure the potato goes all the way through the ricer without issue. It still probably would get pushed through just because they are cooked through, like they're cooked really well. So they could probably get pushed through the holes, but I just don't want to jam it up or anything like that. So I'm just being a little careful. Okay, I think that's most of it. Metal tongs in there. What kind of pan is that? It's an enameled Dutch oven. Really, the only thing that you're not supposed to use metal in is something with like a Teflon or a nonstick coating because the nonstick coating can scratch. So if you have stainless steel, like a stainless steel soup pot, you can use metal tongs or utensils in that. If you have cast iron, that's fine with metal. If you have the enameled Dutch oven, that's fine, which is cast iron with just the enamel on it. Carbon steel, go for it. Really, really up to you. It's just the nonstick pans that you are not supposed to use metal utensils in. Okay, so got my potatoes, got my soup over here. I'm going to move this into my blender bowl with a ladle. And I'm basically, I could just pour this all in, but I would make a huge mess and make splashes all over the place. So I'm just gonna get most of it in here using a ladle, and then I will pour the rest of it in when I get to the bottom. Is 45, the 45, is that just a number or the actual heat? So it's just the level of heat. This specific cooktop goes between like a 1 and a 10, and 4.5 is just medium heat. It's getting heavy. I want to set it down. So yeah, I was just cooking this all on medium heat. That's basically where I live with this recipe. Oh, there's a tiny piece of potato. Get that out. Okay. At this point, I'm just going to scrape the sides down. And the attempt now is just to make sure that I get all the pieces of leek into my blender. And this is good. Pour away from yourself so that you don't splash onto yourself. And honestly, at this point, you can either just rinse this out or you can be absolutely insane like me and scrape the dang thing so you get all the pieces. Really up to you. Just if you're making something creamy and then you leave like a couple of pieces of leek or onion or whatever in here, then it's not going to be completely creamy and that's going to be annoying. So you do whichever one you want. Scrape everything out or just rinse the pot. You haven't built up any like flavor or fond or anything on the bottom of the pot, so rinsing it isn't going to do anything. Okay. That's everything. Everything I can scrape off. Okay. Good to go. We're going to blend this. We are almost done, guys. Almost done. Okay, I'm going to blend this up. I'm not going to talk while I'm blending this because if I talk while I blend this, then it's going to be really loud on the mic. So I'm just going to let the noise gate do its job and it will be silent for the next like 30 seconds. Okay. And I actually just realized that I forgot to add my thyme. So we're going to do that real quick. The thyme gets blended in to the soup base. Unless you want like leaves, like you want pieces of thyme just like hanging out in your soup and getting like really big punches of thyme, which I don't want. I want to blend it into it. So I'm going to do that. Herbs are usually added in the 30 minutes, about 30 minutes of cooking before you serve. Fresh herbs. If you're using dried herbs, they get added when you're sauteing or sweating down your vegetables. If you're using fresh herbs, they're going to get added really close to the end. Okay, let's do this one more time. Okay. Come back to this. So like this is already really good. This is leek soup. And now we're going to add the potatoes to it. Okay. Oh my God, that's so good. Holy cow. Okay. I am going to turn this back on, but I am going to turn it on just low. So we're going to just keep it there. I'm going to take my potato ricer. So here's where I talked a little bit earlier about the technique of how this works is I can blend that soup as long as I want, get it as creamy as I want, right? And then without gumming up the potatoes, we go ahead and we do this guy. So we have minimal agitation, right? So this is basically like if we were going to make mashed potatoes. Okay. A couple more pieces. Yeah, so dried herbs need time to rehydrate and actually flavor whatever soup, stew, stock, something or other that you're making. Fresh herbs do not need that. The longer a fresh herb cooks, the less flavor it will have. The longer a dried herb cooks, the more flavor it will provide. So they kind of work in opposite. I am moving this back over the bowl that I've got these in because I don't want the pieces that aren't pushed through the bottom of the potato ricer to end up in the soup because, right, we're going for creamy. So I'm making sure that that happens. Okay. I should be using tongs for this instead of my hands, but it's fine. Okay, we'll shift to tongs. It's just because they got a little buried and I was like, but we'll do that now. We're getting to where it's a little soupy because it came out of the stock and I just don't feel like touching that today. Okay. Okie dokie. Let's do some mixing. So this is now going to get mixed in until it kind of disintegrates into our soup. And you can stop here. I'm not going to stop here, but you can stop here if you really wanted to. Okay, and I'm also going to add in the white pepper that we ground earlier. Okay. Toss in our white pepper. I'm really surprised that I did not sneeze. Really proud of myself. I'm going to stand back a little bit so that I don't end up sneezing on stream. So there still is a little bit of texture in the potatoes. And because I want this to be super, super creamy, but I don't want to like really, my light fell down again. Let me go fix that real quick. There's still a little bit of texture in the potatoes and I do want it to be much cream, like not much creamier, but I want to give it just that little extra. So I am going to use, that's so good. I am going to use an immersion blender. So my stick blender here, to finish this off without having to add it into that blender and have it get over whipped and over mixed. Okay, so this way I can control like where I end up and how much time we're actually agitating the potatoes. And also because we've kind of broken up those potatoes and aerated them and pushed them through the potato ricer, and now we've surrounded them with the liquid, right, of the soup, there's far less damage that I can do this way than if I had put full potatoes into that and just took everything from the pot, put it into the blender and had those full potatoes kind of have to get broken up, right? So because I've used that ricer, I've kind of like immediately kind of stopped or like lessened the ability. There's like more play in the joints on like getting a thick, gloopy soup. Okay, so, oh God, don't tell me. The battery's dead. Is the battery dead or did it just not connect it correctly? No, I'm pretending. That's funny. Okay, I will do this off stream after we finish, but it's basically done. That's so funny. Okay. The last thing that I want to do today is I'm going to put some nutmeg in here. And this is really like, you're doing like a 1/16 of a teaspoon. It's like 0.2 grams. Like it's super, super, not a lot. Anytime that you, honestly, anytime you have a delicate, creamy concoction of whatever, sauce, soup, stew, something or other, especially if you plan to add cream as a finisher or there's like sour cream in it or something like that and it's like a nice light, nutmeg is like the perfect topping. The perfect kind of like just subtle addition, give it a little bit of nuttiness, a little bit of something in there. And so I am, in fact, you don't have to, but I am going to add some nutmeg to this. I like nutmeg in this soup. And it's just a touch. We're not doing anything crazy. That's it. Done. Another sound to add in post, right? Not a big deal. Okay. And the salt is right where I want it to be, so I don't need to add any more salt to this. When I serve this dish, you can eat it as is. Totally fine. Eat it right out of the pot if you want. That's exactly what I'm about to do. But I do like to do a couple of different things. If you want, you can add some sour cream. You need a little bit of tanginess in there. If you and an additional bit of body, like if you feel like it's a little bit too loose for you, you want it a little thicker, sour cream is a great addition. If you want to just add a little bit of creaminess and maybe like bring down the amount of flavor, adding a little bit of heavy cream in there, totally go for it. You can also add in buttermilk. That's the thing I prefer. I really like to throw in like, a tablespoon, like 15 milliliters, just drizzle on some buttermilk and mix that in. I think it's because buttermilk is not as thick as heavy cream. It maintains the texture of the dish, the thickness of the soup that I want, but also gives just a little bit of tartness to it, a little bit of sourness that I really like. So I like to add buttermilk. It's also really fun to make croutons for this. So if you have any like leftover bread, especially if you have like a sourdough or like an Italian loaf or something like that, if you have like slices of it, just chop those slices into squares, coat them in a little bit of olive oil, maybe toss some some garlic, something, I don't know, like any other like garlic powder or paprika or some of the garlic oil that we've now made over here could be just kind of brushed on them. Bake those in the oven until they're nice and crispy all over. You're gonna want to inset like a cookie sheet, like a cookie drying rack or whatever they're called, like the little like racks that are let air go through. But you're gonna want to inset in that into your half sheet baking tray, and then put the bread on that, and then you're gonna be like flipping it kind of halfway through to make sure it cooks on all sides, and that it really gets that kind of like airflow to really get them nice and crispy. That's super good in this dish as well. But that's everything. I really hope that, aside from our handful of hiccups that we had with our mic and then with this guy, that you guys found a really good recipe, that you're comfortable making this, that you understand why we're doing things. If anybody has any questions, if you found this video at a later date, you're not here for the live, please feel free to ask a question in the comment section. I do periodically come in and check on stuff, and if I see something or I get notified that somebody's commented, I'll go in and answer questions. You can also DM me at my Instagram at _little_spoon. That's my handle. DM me there. There is a contact form on my website at alittlespoon.com. You can contact me there. I'm happy to answer questions all the time. I love doing this. So if anybody does have anything, happy to teach, happy to talk food always. I think that's everything. This is the whole dish. Thank you so much for joining me. Enjoy your spring soups. Enjoy your transition. It was really nice to have you guys here. I'll see you guys next time.